Welcome to Undercurrents of Romance, the show that celebrates every subgenre of romantic fiction. In each episode, I peel back the layers of your favorite love stories and chat with the talented authors who bring them to life. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. Now, let's dive in with today's guest. Hello, Romantics. I'm here with New York Times bestselling author Brenda Novak to talk about her new release, The Summer That Changed Everything. Welcome to the show, Brenda.
This is it. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm excited to be
beautiful
here.
cover.
I like it with the sharks, circling around. Makes you wonder what that could be.
Absolutely. I love the tagline on there. Something I don't have it, I didn't write it down, so but it was something about being under the surface, and I thought
Yeah,
that
some
was
secrets
great.
are best left or best kept below the
There
surface.
you go. Yeah, nice, which is just perfect for this book. But first, before we get into your lovely book, can you I wanted just to like wish you a happy belated birthday. I saw recently that you had a birthday, so
Well, I'm still
congratulations.
celebrating. I take the whole month. I'm getting old enough that I figure I deserve it.
Absolutely,
My family
absolutely.
teases me, and now they're following suit. So I have 5 kids. So celebrating for a week or two for each person is turning into almost a full year celebration. It feels like we'll just get over one and we got to celebrate the next.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That is wonderful. I'm glad that you're doing that. I to me it's like birthdays are just like one another day to, and but I love it when I hear people celebrate because it's a good thing. It's absolutely a good
Yeah,
thing.
I use it a long time. My husband's like, I know it's your birthday. It'll be you after when I want something. I know it's your birthday.
Well, we were chatting a little bit before I recorded, and Brenda and I met many, many years ago when I interviewed her for what is now a defunct blog about her online diabetes auction, which I think I saw that you raised like $2.5 million for
Yeah,
that.
7. Yeah, we got
Okay.
very fortunate because the entire reader writer community got involved. I'm still hearing from readers that shopped on that auction and got cool things, and writers could get cool things. We had editors,
Yes.
major houses, offering to do a read of a manuscript within 24 hours of receiving it and calling the person who had submitted it to discuss it. I mean, just huge amounts of sacrifice.
Yeah.
Agents, editors, other authors. We had lunch with Lee Child in New York. We had, lunch with Diana Gabaldon in Arizona. We had dinner with, Catherine Coulter in Sausalito. So everybody just pitched in. It was a beautiful
Yeah.
thing to see.
It was when I think back on it and I think about what you did, not just for that charity and but for what you did for the writing community, it was unlike really anything else that was out there to be able to connect new writers with these folks who are seasoned and they've got a lot to wisdom to impart and it was to me because I was a newish writer at that time. It was just kind of like a magical thing. It was something you look forward to every May, and just being able to go online and see everything that was being offered. And yeah, it was just a wonderful way to really connect. And so, th
Yeah. That
thank
was
you.
an
I don't
interesting
think I've ever
story.
said thank you, but thank you
Oh,
for
you're
that. That was
welcome.
amazing.
You're
Yeah, yeah.
welcome. I actually ran into another writer. She was an aspiring writer who followed the auction, and she offered to help me one year. And I was hand loading all those things, which would give
Oh
me
my
a
gosh.
tunnel because I was using a mouse, and it was hard. So she was so much quicker than I was on the computer, and she could figure out how to use the bulk uploader. So anyway, she helped me. Her name's Lauren Hawkeye. She's in Canada, and she helped for a number of years, bless her heart. And then this happened after her son came down with type 1 diabetes.
Oh,
Little did she know all that sacrifice she was giving to other people and other people's children began to be even much more meaningful for her because then she was dealing with a type 1 diabetic who was a child like I was. Uh,
oh
so
gosh.
we're type 1, sisters.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. Oh,
was so
how
nice of her to
interesting.
come to my rescue and help out that way. She's a beautiful soul.
It's just so interesting how the world works in
Yeah.
beautiful ways like that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just a real joy to have you join me on the podcast. So why don't you, if you don't mind, just we know about the auction. Why don't you tell us just a little bit more about yourself and maybe about your writing journey? Just whatever you want to share. That'd be great.
Sure. I never dreamed I'd be a writer. I'm unlike most other writers in that way. I often hear them talk at various library functions or whatever, and everybody's like, "Oh, I've been telling stories since I was a child." I did not have that experience. I thought I was left-brained, better in math and science. And so that's what I was going out in is business. And then when I married, I left school before I graduated, left college. I left a full ride scholarship to get married and have kids and moved to California. And when I did that, I mean, I was just raised in a very conservative, very religious household. I grew up Mormon. I'm no longer Mormon now, but the expectation for women is that you support your husband. You stay at home, you raise the children, and you support him in his work endeavors. And so that's what I foresaw as my future. Well, my husband was building homes at this time. He was a residential developer, and it was just not going well. The economy was falling apart. All the homes were pre-sold, but the appraisals were coming in below our cost, and he was fighting like crazy to save this business. And I had to go to work and leave my three children with a babysitter, and I was doing loans. And I caught my daycare provider drugging my children with cough syrup to get them to sleep all
Oh
day
my
while I
gosh.
worked. And it just devastated me because I had all this mother's guilt for having had to leave them in the first place. And so I quit my
Mm.
job to stay home with them. And of course, we weren't able to make our house payment. We weren't able to do anything because my husband was fighting so hard to save this business. And so I had to do something. And I remember I was reading a good book that my sister sent to me. It was Jude Devereux's Knight in Shining Armor, very iconic. You probably
Yes.
recognize it.
Yes.
And I remember how much I loved it and how it just carried me away from all these angst and worry. And when I closed it, I remember thinking, I wonder if I could do this. You can write a book at home, with children, because I wasn't going to leave them again after what had happened. And
Yeah.
so I started the next day. And because my favorite book growing up was Jane Eyre, I decided I was going to write an English set historical, which is kind of a dumb decision in retrospect because the internet wasn't what it is today. It was just getting started. It did not have research options. And so I had to teach myself not only the craft of writing, but I had to teach myself everything about that era, and all the historical research that went into it had to be done at the only library that was big enough. And that was Sac State, which was, 30, 40 minutes away from our house. So Ted would get home at like 8 because he was working so hard. And I'd hand whatever baby was still up to him. And I would rush out, and I would barely get down to Sac State with maybe 20 minutes before they closed. And those librarians would like groan when I walked through the door because I was always, that it was me, the one that showed up late. They didn't understand my situation. And I'd stand at the copy machine because you could only carry so many books back to the car. And the parking lot wasn't closed. And so I would be copying and copying, putting in whatever change we have, trying to get copies that I wouldn't have to return immediately as well, that I could hang on to and highlight and do what I wanted, manipulate. And so it took me 5 years to teach myself the craft and to finish that first manuscript, which I ended up selling to HarperCollins. So it was not the quick fix. We lost our house, we lost everything. That business, it just went really badly. But at night, I would lay down and I would think, I wonder, if I can get this published. And even if I don't, I love what I'm doing. I absolutely love it.
Mm.
My book is good. So I hung on to that, believing in that book and what I was writing and how much I was enjoying learning and writing. So it sort of saved me in that way, if not the financial way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is really interesting once you pick up, whatever it was at the time, the pen and paper or hit the keyboard. Once you start, it's almost a compulsion to keep going. And that's when you know that you're a writer. It's just can't you can't see yourself doing anything else after that. You know what I mean? So it's
Right. That
very
was definitely
interesting.
the silver lining to that difficult time because I felt like I had found my calling in life and that I would do that forevermore, whether I get published or not. And so
Yeah.
published now for 26 years. So it's been a minute.
Yeah, well, and to think that all that you're accomplishing today, and to think about that kind of dark time in your life whenever you lost everything, it just it's just a kind of a I don't know what the right word is, but it's just something you probably keep in the back of your mind all the times, like I can never go back to that.
Yeah, it does. It makes you
Yeah.
feel, but it does make you kind of weird about money sometimes too. Like I'm afraid
Mm,
and because I don't want to go without again, that kind of a thing.
yeah.
So it leaves scars, but it also makes you more humble, I think, and compassionate for other people who are going through these things because life can be difficult for so many. It's
Yeah.
easy. So it definitely,
Right.
well, reading, I think also, enhances empathy and creates people who are more understanding. So there's that
I
aspect
agree.
as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Well, I really loved your protagonist, Lucy Sinclair, and the fact that you made her a professional gambler. I thought she was just so incredibly brave to return to her hometown after what happened, and I love that dynamic that you did between her and her father. It felt very unique and refreshing, but also a little heartbreaking.
Yeah, she was an interesting character. I didn't know when I set out to write the book that she would be a professional gambler. I was looking for something a little unconventional because
Yeah,
this day and age, you see this younger generation, they're very eager to not work the 9 to 5, at least many of the ones I know, including my children. They're not excited about what we did or grew up expecting to be normal, right? You get a job, you work
yeah,
for some corporation, it's 9 to 5. And so I knew somebody with her background, with her lack of schooling, with everything she had been through and traveling around in the van, after that happened, looking for a home, looking for roots and what something to build. And as she recovered, I just felt like that was fitting. It was the one thing her father taught her was how to play poker, and that was the
yeah,
one thing that ended up saving her and giving her enough income
yeah,
to create a life.
yeah. So, what can I want to try and avoid spoilers. So, what can you tell us about the summer that changed everything?
Well, it's a story that encompasses one of my favorite tropes, of course, which is second chance at love, and that goes a little farther than the romantic relationship involved because it also goes for her and her father. I mean,
Yeah,
she believed all those years so many things that she's not sure at the beginning of the story are accurate or true, and so she has to face that in order to look herself in the eye. She has to go back and know that her own feelings are right and that what she's done, where he's concerned, not having spoken to him for so long, is the right thing. So I feel like second chance at love goes for both of those relationships.
hmm, yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Lucy's love interest, Ford Wagner. His marriage is collapsing as you open up the book, and there's just another layer of complication there that I'm not sure that we can discuss. But did you feel it risky introducing a married hero? Did that ever?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because there's so much blowback from, there are certain triggers for certain people, especially if
Yeah.
you've ever had anybody cheat on you or whatever, you're thinking that's cheating. But I think what makes it less, or more palatable, I should say, is once you get to know the woman, and what his personal situation is like. And the fact that it is understood from the beginning that they are no longer together. It's not as if this other woman has an expectation of
Right.
fidelity, which I think is where you get in the most trouble. In the olden days, I think the actual marriage thing carried more weight. I think nowadays
Yeah.
with generations, it's more about what you create as expectation in the mind of that other person. That's how you play fair, is by being completely honest, no matter what you're doing. And so certainly Ford is always honest in this book and fair with her. As a matter of fact,
Hmm.
too fair, which is why I think most people are not so thrilled with her as a character as they get to know her in the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you make us fall a little bit in love with him right away once he starts fixing up around the house of the
Oh,
cottage,
yeah.
and
I don't know where that came from in my mind. That wasn't
yeah,
something, again, I don't plot. I just but I liked it. Once it was going, it was a way to bring some positivity and some beauty into a story that starts out a little dark. I mean, she starts out with her meeting her father in prison for the first time in all these years and finally facing some
yeah,
of those questions in the back of her mind, and then having to go back into that situation, as you say, took incredible strength, where she is tempted to flee at first because she's frightened and
yeah,
it's a lot to look into, and you don't want to find certain answers, you want to find others. And so to have him do what he does, I think, does show you that he has a good heart, and he is the one person who does try and make things easier for her,
yeah.
in those early chapters.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to maybe show that he still loves her, because it is a second chance, so they knew each other from before, and so that was a great way to show that he still had feelings for her, whether he realized it or not, it was
Right,
still
right. I
there.
don't think even he
Yeah.
fully realized it, but he definitely does. that he wasn't completely fair with her, and
Yeah.
feels a great deal of regret for his part in what happened. So I also like redemption stories a lot, and this one is a bit of a
Yeah.
redemption story. Well, on many levels, I guess, because the way it goes, there's several characters that you're thinking, oh, maybe this person isn't quite as bad as we initially thought. And
Yeah.
Ford for sure has a lot of regret. And I like stories about people who are real enough to make mistakes, but then who have the courage to stand up and apologize and try and make things right, and be who they come to be, who they really are inside, even
Hmm.
if they were misled or confused or made a mistake or whatever. So I love those redemption stories.
Right, right. And he's obviously a very different person from when I think what were they 17, 18 years old at the time, and
Right.
then now it's 15 years later. So very different people than what they
Right. The
were when
people
they were.
around him don't have quite as much influence. He's grown into who he is. But I hoped that he would be sympathetic. His mistake would be somewhat sympathetic because he was so young and he was under so much
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah. No,
And so it
you
makes it
did
a little
it.
more
Yeah.
forgivable.
You made it work. You made it work. I was a little iffy about him at first, and I'm like, no, I see what she's doing here. Yeah, no, he
Oh,
was
good.
great. He was a
Good.
great character. Well, one of the things that I like to dive into on this show is finding the story's undercurrent with the author. It's that second beating heart of the story that flows beneath the lover's journey, and it also helps propel the story forward. What would you say? And it could be redemption. There might be another undercurrent that you can think of. What undercurrent is flowing beneath Lucy and Ford's story, do you think?
I think remaking yourself, is a theme that I tend to use quite often. And in this book, she's had to do that the very hard way throughout her life, but then in a more deeper emotional way as she grows into the role she takes on. So I like the idea of turning into the best version of ourselves and coming from difficulty and making, lemonade out of lemons kind of thing. And I think as the story progresses, you hopefully, as a reader, admire her for her strength and her resilience and her determination to stick with what truths she's finding and to follow it all the way to the end.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I love that. Well, changing gears just a little bit, you already mentioned tropes, which I always like to ask my guests about. Second chance, obviously, is one for this one. Can you think of another trope or two that falls within this book or
Boy,
that readers
we
will?
don't have a secret baby. What else is well, I guess there's some other surprises, but I wouldn't call that a trope.
Secrets, yeah. Well, I think secrets would
Yeah,
be
just
okay. Yeah.
just secret.
Forced proximity, do you think maybe?
Yeah, maybe a forced
Yeah.
proximity because he comes back to his beach house, which is so close to the house that she has leased
Yeah.
in the summer. So they're kind of forced back into this small world that they left when they were younger. So yeah, forced proximity would be another good one.
All right, great. Well, what romance book have you read recently that you would recommend and maybe why?
Gosh, there's so many good ones. I love all
Yeah.
of Kristen Hanna's. I've read hers. Recently, I got caught up. Nancy Naigle sent me an arc of hers. It's Light the Way Forward, and so that one is one that I'm in the middle of and enjoying. The book club for troublesome women is one that I have coming up in my book club, my online book club on Facebook. I have a group where I feature other authors in the months that I
Mm.
don't have a release, and then we all read her book, and we can get autographed copies of it in the Brenda Novak book boxes and collect them throughout the year and earn a pin at the end and so forth. And Marie Botswick, who wrote the book club for troublesome women, is an upcoming read. So I got an early arc that I'm really enjoying of that one. Whatever Happened to Lori Lovely by Sarah McCoy. She's somebody who's interested in being in the group next year. So I'm reading her book and trying to figure out a way to get her in because it comes out this year. So usually it's a new release.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's going to
Yeah.
work, but I'm trying to work with her. And then I love The Hayward Girls by Susan Wiggs. She sent me an arc. Let's see, there was one that Nancy Nagle's. What was it? Not Nancy Naigle, Nancy Thayer. So, Summer Light on Nantucket. Summer Light on Nantucket, I think was the name of that one. And that one was excellent as well. So, yeah,
Oh,
lots of
great.
great
A lot of
summer
great ones.
reads. Oh, and
Yeah,
I'm reading Viola Shipman's right now. That's the featured author that we have this month called The Page Turner, which is about a
ah,
writer. So yeah, so that's the one that we're reading together, and I'll be interviewing him myself on the last Thursday of the month. Wade Rouse writes as Viola Shipman under his grandmother's name, so I'll get to
oh,
him.
Nice, nice. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. That's great. I always like to try and include some recommendations of other authors in the show notes of the podcast. So thank you so much
Oh,
for that. That's
wonderful.
great.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
And I have just one last question here before we end. Is there a story you would love to write but haven't yet taken the plunge for whatever reason?
Absolutely. I have a whole series. It's going to be historicals. They won't necessarily be historical romances. There will be romance in there, but it'll be much more in the vein of like a John Jakes. I don't know if you read him growing up like I did. Absolutely loved his series. There was so much history in it. It started with The Bastard, The Furies. I'm trying to remember all the names, but anyway, so I have been for years, I've been collecting books on the time period that I want to set mine and reading them. And I can't wait until someday it'll be something. I can't imagine many publishers will be excited about it because it'll be such a divergence from what I'm
Uh,
writing right now. So it'll be like starting over, and it's really hard to get somebody to take a chance on something like that, especially because it's a very binary opportunity. Either it goes huge or it doesn't do anything, and it's percent chance it goes huge and 90% chance it doesn't. So it's tough to get somebody to bite off on that risk with you. But when my career begins to wind down, I think I'll dive in and do that. And that way, even if I have to self-publish it, we'll see what people think of it.
Oh, great. Well, we will keep our eye on that. I hope you do. I hope you make that happen. And I hope there's a
Hopefully.
smart publisher out there who will pick it up for you too.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Who knows? What have you been up to lately?
Oh, for me, I am just finishing up edits on like a pure thriller. Normally, I write romantic suspense,
Yeah,
but
right.
this will
Yeah,
be what it's just a pure thriller. There's a few romantic elements in it, but so yeah, that's been something. It's
exciting.
for me that was my kind of my passion project. I got the idea about it back in 2012, 2013, and it just wouldn't let me go. And for many reasons I won't bore you with, I haven't, I haven't hadn't taken that plunge, but finally I did, and I'm so happy that I did. So hopefully there'll
And
be a
you
publisher
finished
out there
it?
for that too.
Say you just finished it?
I just finished it. I'm in the editing process of
My
it.
gosh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
wonderful. Oh, you
yeah.
got it done. Well, I'm very envious of that. Good job. I'm excited. I'll
Thank
look
you.
for that. Sounds like it's
Thank
going to
you.
be a good one.
I hope so. I hope so. Well,
Yeah.
before we go, can you give us a hint of what's coming up next?
Yeah, well, the summer that changed everything comes out June 3rd, so I have a book tour that I'm going on. So I'll be on that for a couple of weeks all around the US. And then I don't have another release out until next year. It's called Meet Me in Italy. I love the
Oh,
way the book turned out, so I'm super excited about that one. And then I have a Christmas book coming out later in the year next year. And then after that, I've got to get writing to see what comes next.
all right. Will we see another Bookstream nationwide tour?
You know what? We will probably take the book stream out again. I don't know if it'll be a huge nationwide tour, but I am taking it to the California State Fair again this year. I'll be at the Redwoods Fair. I was just at the Art
Nice.
Fair Mall. They put me in center court, trying to get it in there for Mother's Day was crazy. But yeah, we use the book stream when we can. It's about timing. It gets really hot in there when you're meeting readers if it's too hot
Ah,
outside because the air conditioning is just not enough to overpower that heat when you're in this metal can,
yeah.
the door not being able to be shut with people coming in and out. So it gets really hot in the summer. So we have to
Okay.
make sure if we use it that it's in the spring or fall. And so you have to kind of do timing. And then it's hard to get from place to place soon enough. So it stretches out your tour a really long time.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not taking it on this one. It's early June, so maybe kind of warm in some places, but it's more about I'm going to be in a new stop every day for, 10 days, it seems like. So there's no way I could have pulled the book stream that quickly and
Yeah.
gotten it there. And it takes so much time to set it up. And yeah, so it's a lot of work to take it, but it's also fun.
It looks like it's a ton of fun, and your husband's even involved in it as your barista. So I thought, and
Yes.
if anybody's not familiar with what I'm talking about here, just go to Brenda's Instagram page, flip through, and you'll see that she renovated an Airstream trailer, and it's like this little bookshop inside. It is so adorable. I you have just like with the auction and and doing that charity, but also helping out writers, and now the book stream and everything that you're doing on Facebook for your readers. You're just so forward thinking and just kind of revolutionary in that way. And it's you're doing things before other people are doing them. And I admire you a lot for that.
Well, thank you. I have my daughter to thank for a lot of the Bookstream type stuff. It was her idea to do the Bookstream. And I said, where will I get a Bookstream? Like, I mean, an Airstream, like a vintage Airstream. And my husband piped up and said, oh, our neighbor down the street just sold his gymnastics business to move out into the country so we can renovate Airstreams. I'm like, what are the odds of that? So I'm like, but there's no way you'd have one I could afford that's going to be small enough. Like, and he goes, well, let's call him. And he said, oh, I have the perfect little 1963 Globetrotter here, and it's already been gutted, so I would just have to renovate it, and I can get it done in time for your tour. So then I hung up and looked at Lexa and Ted and was like, well, I guess we're going to be renovating an air. That one just was her idea, and it just kind of fell into my lap. So
Oh, I love when the universe works like that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, it worked out nicely. And then that tour we went on for 2 months was spectacular. Like
It
I
looked,
that was kind of, I feel like even if I never published a book after that, that was kind of my big finale, like throw up the confetti.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, folks, when this episode airs, The Summer That Changed Everything will be out, so be sure to order your copy today. You can check out Brenda's amazing website at brendanovak.com. Be sure to sign up for her newsletter and visit her store where she has a lot of fun bookish items that you can nab. Brenda, Facebook maybe is probably going to be your answer, and you're very heavily into Instagram, but what social media platform are you most active on?
Probably Facebook. And we're trying to focus a little more on Instagram. But Facebook is, what I grew up with, I guess, after I grew up. But anyway, I've learned
Yeah.
it best.
Right.
So yeah, I would probably say Facebook, but Instagram, pretty kind of equal at this point.
Okay, great, great. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was great to reconnect with you and to chat with you about this novel. It was
Uh,
amazing. I enjoyed it. I know readers are going to, and I can't wait for them to get a hold of it this summer.
oh, thank you so much. What a great interview. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks so much. Many
Right.
thanks to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Undercurrents of Romance. You can find more information about the show at traceydevlyn.com/podcast. Undercurrents of Romance is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. I'll be back soon with another great romantic read. In the meantime, enjoy the adventure, everyone.